Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Faster Mike, good evening. It's 5 o'clock on Friday the 10th of January. The weekend's here, so let's take a look at the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up over the next half hour, 2 public sector employers have put new offers on the table in a bid to end disputes over pay. Reaction to the pending closure of another of Ramsey's bank branches, and we hear how the steam packet helped pay tribute to a woman known as a Manx Viking Queen. All that and more, plus weather and sport and what to watch out for on the roads. Let us know your thoughts. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. And we'll start, as always, with a look at today's headlines with Amy Griffiths. Faster my, Amy.
Faster my. The mountain road has reopened between Ramsey and the Creg-na-Bar. It's been closed for several days because of deep snow, but has now been cleared and treated with salt by the Department of Infrastructure. Motorists are still being urged to take care, though, amid the yellow weather warning that's in place. A Ramsey commissioner is warning the total loss of physical banking in the town is a case of when and not if. Barclays will close its branch there in April, while Lloyds Banks will close its one in next month. Dewey McGuinness says losing all banks there is becoming increasingly likely.
I think it's just really hit the town. It feels inevitable and that there's nothing that can be done about it.
David Cretney's become the first candidate to declare for the local authority elections in April. The Manx Labour Party member will stand in Douglas South, where he was MHK for 35 years. The children of a Manx woman are thanking the steam packet for saluting and honouring their mother on her final journey home. Florence Jean Prest, formerly Looney, died in her UK home at the age of 94, but wanted to be laid to rest alongside her parents at Kirkbraden Cemetery. Her children, Jackie, David and Mark, made the journey this week and held her funeral yesterday.
We'd like to thank the steam packet for the beautiful gesture they made and the honour that they gave to her in saluting her as we arrived.
To international news now, and Donald Trump's avoided punishment after being sentenced to an unconditional discharge in his hush money case. It means the US president-elect is able to return to the White House without the threat of a jail term or being fined. Britain's gas storage levels are concerningly low, with less than a week of demand available as many of us turn the heating on to deal with the freezing conditions. That's according to the owner of British Gas, Centrica. And Sir Rod Stewart is celebrating his 80th birthday today. It's thought the singer's marking the occasion on a Caribbean island with his family. That's the latest. I'll be back with the news in full at 6.
Grow my head. Thank you, Amy, there. Now, the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. There is that yellow weather warning in for ice until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Road surface temperatures over higher ground will remain close to freezing with a continuing risk of ice. Well, dry this evening and tonight with some clear spells gradually turning a bit cloudier later in the night, allowing temperatures to fall again, giving a risk of some icy patches in places, but with moderate fresh southeast winds creating less of a risk of ice along the east coast. Another icy start tomorrow with clouds increasing through the morning with some patchy outbreaks of rain developing into the afternoon, perhaps falling as sleet briefly over the hills. A mainly moderate southeasterly wind with top temperature around 6 degrees. Then Sunday will be rather cloudy and mostly dry, only a small risk of drizzle at times, mainly over the hills. The south to southwest wind will increase to become strong and with milder maximum temperatures of around 8 degrees, tropical. And sunrise tomorrow morning at 8:33. Sunset tomorrow afternoon at 19 minutes past 4.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Simply income protection from Kestrel Insurance. A choice of benefits. Simple underwriting and peace of mind with a regular income for up to 2 years if you're unable to work due to illness or injury. Kestrel Insurance is registered with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for three-piece suites, dining and living room furniture and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Making life easier with Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill. Are you looking for a stair lift? Look no further with Which Magazine's #1 recommended stair lifts. Now provided by Manx Mobility. Access BDD stair lifts. Call us today on 200 680.
The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Yes, indeed, and the time now 5:05. Two public sector employers have put new offers on the table in a bid to end disputes over pay. The Public Services Commission wants unions to put its new proposals to their members, while the British Medical Association has been meeting with Manx Care this week. Sian Cowper reports.
In a meeting last week, unions expressed concerns that the 3-year agreement previously put forward by the PSC could mean a below-inflation increase in the third year. In a letter to staff, Chair of the Commission, Rob Callister, says the Commission would favour a 3-year deal as it provides financial clarity for workers and accounting. But the PSC is now offering a 4% increase for the current financial year, with a 2.5% rise next year. It's also proposing changes to annual leave that would see employees who accrue 10 years of service receive 30 days per year instead of 28. The Commission, which is the employer of more than half of government's workforce, has advised Prospect and Unite the Union of the offer and says it would like the unions to progress to ballot. Meanwhile, further talks are set to take place between Manx Care and the BMA next week after the island's healthcare provider made a revised pay offer to the union's members. In addition to the 6% uplift for 2023 to 24 and 4% for the current financial year, Manx Care said it would uplift all doctors who are currently on a lower pay scale than those in England. The BMA hasn't accepted the offer, has sought improvements and is seeking clarification on the detail of the offer proposed, as different levels of uplift would apply to different grades of doctor. A statement issued by the Isle of Man government says both sides agree the island may need to consider going beyond parity with England pay scales in order to support recruitment. Manx Care and the BMA have agreed to meet again with support from Manx Industrial Relations Service early next week to continue negotiations. Last month, the BMA members voted in support of industrial action over the pay dispute.
Sian Cowper with that report there. 7 minutes past 5 now. Earlier this week, we heard the news that the Barclays Bank branch in Ramsey will be closing its doors for the final time in April. It comes just 2 months after Lloyds announced it too would be closing its branch in the town in February. So, come April, there will just be one physical branch, Isle of Man Bank, left in Ramsey. I've been speaking to local commissioner, Ewan McGuinness.
It's really disappointing, hot on the heels of Lloyds going, and a couple of years ago HSBC. From having 4 high street banks and plenty of options in the town, and for the north of the island to be reduced to just the Isle of Man Bank, it's really sad, and it's going to have a massive impact on the residents of the north of the island and the businesses.
What have you heard from residents in Ramsey so far, just online and in person?
I think a lot of people are wondering what they're going to do going forward to get access to cash machines. The businesses are worried that they're going to have to move away from cash as a trading currency because of the effort of having to go to Douglas to cash in or obtain change. And I think it's just really hit the town in a sort of, it feels inevitable and that there's nothing that can be done about it, but just really, really sad at the same time.
What can government, what can local authorities do to retain these physical outlets? People were asking about the idea of a hub where banks could, say, operate out of a day a week. Is that idea propped up before?
Yes, it has. And I think in principle, the idea of a hub sounds like a logical answer. What I find a bit reprehensible is the idea that the Isle of Man government, be it local or central, are going to have to potentially invest money to support the banks who are doing quite well, thank you very much, and could absolutely afford to do it themselves. But something tells me that unless you drag them kicking and screaming into an arrangement like that, there's no impetus on them. And I would be reticent for the Isle of Man government to spend tax or ratepayers' money to facilitate large private companies like banks to provide services.
What's your outlook for physical banking in Ramsey?
The realist in me says that it's a matter of when, not if, physical banking is not in the town, and that will be an incredibly sad day.
Ramsey Commissioner Ewan McGuinness there. The Department of Infrastructure has granted a fourth licence extension to Kroger, the energy company exploring for natural gas in Manx waters. Former Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas has expressed hope that this extension will act as one last chance for Kroger to provide the missing information required to progress the project. Kroger recently withdrew its request to vary its licence after 2 years of deliberation, a move Mr Thomas suggests raises questions about the robustness of the exploration programme. The company claims the island's gas field could contain 1 trillion cubic feet of gas, with potential revenues exceeding £5 billion. When asked about concerns that extracting fossil fuels might conflict with climate ambitions, Mr Thomas shared his perspective.
I think it can. So there are lots of countries. I mean, the last COP meeting was held in hydrocarbon-producing countries, so they can, in principle. It's a policy decision not to do that. The two can be aligned, and I do think that gas has a future as a transition fuel.
If Kroger fails to deliver, would you advocate for bringing in another operator, or do you think the island should reconsider its stance entirely?
Personally, I believe that Kroger could go at it properly, or as an alternative, there would be the possibility to have a new Kroger, or to have a retender the existing licence. But there is that Tynwald policy there, which is would be described as differently by different people. It's ambiguous exactly what it means.
And I suppose at what point would the line be drawn? Because we're now on the fourth extension. How many more extensions before the DOI decides actually we're not getting anywhere?
Well, in fact, where we are now is where we could have been back in July 2023, because if you remember, I was fired on a Sunday with a meeting with Kroger on the Monday, having worked with the Chief Minister the previous week when he was doing my job for me. At that point, I wanted to give one last extension to address the small number of outstanding issues, as they're still called. So we could have been further forward then as to where we are now. So I do hope this is one last chance to establish those outstanding issues, and they are what regulations are missing, because I took applications to council ministers to get funding for filling up the gaps in terms of regulations. The second point is coexistence with Ørsted, because the hydrocarbon field overlaps the wind turbine field, and there are established principles about how that works. And the third, due diligence to do with finance and capability. I do hope all those issues now can be addressed in the remaining period of the extension, and then I will come to Tynwald as soon as it's clear in terms of Kroger licence with another motion. Basically, we should develop our hydrocarbons as a transition fuel.
And do you think you have high chances of pushing that through?
I don't think this House of Keys is minded to support that motion, but we do have another general election in 2026.
Douglas Central MHK and former Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas speaking to Christian Jones there. You can find that full interview and more on that story over at manxradio.com.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Soon be approaching 5:15.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
So let's head on over to the roads, and first things first, after several days the mountain road has now reopened. The DOI says the route has been thoroughly treated with salt. Despite this, motorists are reminded that there is a yellow warning in place overnight concerning icy conditions, especially on higher roads, and all motorists are reminded they should drive to the prevailing conditions. The Tholty Will Road will remain closed from the mountain to the Tholty Will car park. The condition of this road will be reassessed tomorrow morning. And despite significant work being done, the DOI says the Bennypot Road is still very snow and icebound and will not reopen over the weekend. Its condition will be reassessed on Monday. Well, elsewhere, temporary lights in Douglas at the bottom of Prospect Hill, 24 hours a day for electricity work, and in Union Mills, a section of the Strang Road is closed for drainage work. Over at the airport, not as much disruption as there has been as of late, but this afternoon's Loganair flight to Manchester has been cancelled, and the 4:30 EasyJet flight to Manchester is delayed by over an hour currently. Over on the sailings, Manxman will be returning back from Heysham, arriving into Douglas at 6:48. She'll be departing back to the Lancashire port later tonight, leaving Douglas at 9 o'clock.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside.
15 minutes past 5 now. Douglas Council says its social housing tenants won't be evicted from their homes if they can't pay their rent. Devon Watson is the chair of the Housing Committee. He says the increase means more can be spent on maintaining properties and fixing urgent issues.
So essentially, it's not only a 5% increase, but it is also an increase in the allowance that goes toward maintenance. So we ourselves don't set the rents. These are set by DOI, but we do support the measure. And the reason why we do this is because past rent increases have meant that we've been able to double our response time for repairs. They've gone up from 40% to 80% in terms of getting done within target. And with additional increases, we can take more money and invest more in sort of making sure properties are maintained, making sure that properties are up to standard, and making sure that we can build a lot more properties. We're about to open up 48 new apartments in Williston up to the highest standard, and then we can continue that project of getting that housing waiting list down and making sure that people have decent, affordable housing by getting that additional revenue in. One thing I would also like to note is, yes, while public sector rents are increasing by 5%, this is much lower than the rental increases that many people in the private sector are receiving, and we are trying to provide a much, much better service than some of the worst housing that you see in the private sector, but with much fewer resources, and the only way we can do that is with democratic buy-in. Of all rental income we receive, we've got a specific amount that we're allowed to spend on staff, we've got a specific amount that we're allowed to spend on maintenance, and a specific amount that we're allowed to spend on additional loans. So what these changes and increases mean is that for an authority like Douglas that does have some social housing that is 120, 130 years old, that we can now repair and maintain them. Some empty properties that we do have, we can repair and maintain them, and some of the new housing plans we have, we can actually enact them. We can hire the staff to make that happen, repairmen, handymen, the people who can administer those processes.
That's Devon Watson, Douglas Council's chair of the Housing Committee. Now, this weekend marks 25 years since the scallop dredger Solway Harvester sank in Manx waters. Many will remember it well from the time the news broke of the sinking through the tense days that followed as searches were conducted. And whilst the vessel was raised and sat in Douglas Harbour during the coroner's inquest that followed, a scale model was used to inform investigations. That model is currently on display at the House of Manannan as part of the All at Sea exhibition. Curator Alison Fox says it's a powerful artefact, as it's the sort of thing not usually seen by the public.
This came into the National Collections quite a few years ago after the end of the inquest, and it's been looked after at our large object store at Balthane. We thought long and hard about whether we should include this. It's a very sensitive subject. It's a very emotive object. You know, when you think about what happened at the 11th of January, you know, all those lives lost, really devastated a small maritime community. But we thought, well, you know, if not now, then when? You know, we have this object, so we should bring it out. And it's really poignant to look at it, really, because it doesn't look like a model somebody would make to be proud of, you know, to be accurate to what the vessel was like. It's a model that was built for function. Mm-hmm. So during the inquest, there was lots of experiments done about water being put into this model, about how the actual vessel may have reacted, depending where and at what rate the water actually entered the vessel. So we have this on display here, and actually we have extended the opening of the exhibition slightly to incorporate this 25th anniversary. So the exhibition will be open now until the 26th of January.
Alison Fox, Curator of Archaeology at Manx National Heritage there. The time now 19 minutes past 5. The children of a Manx woman are thanking the steam packet for saluting and honouring their mother on her final journey home. Described as a Manx Viking Queen, Florence Jean Prest, formerly Looney, recently died in her UK home surrounded by her children at the age of 94. Her wish was to be brought back to the island and laid to rest alongside her parents at Kirkbraden Cemetery. Her children Jackie, David and Mark made the journey this week and held her funeral yesterday.
We went with the Co-op funeral service in the UK, but they didn't have a branch in the Isle of Man, so we had to work out how to get here, and my brother jokingly said to her, "I'll take you in my van." And because my mum was so quirky, she loved the idea and fell about laughing. So that's what we did. We drove her up to Haitian, brought her across on the ferry, and it was just as she thought, really. We just laughed our heads off. Her children were bringing her home, and bringing her home from whence she came is so important to us. And to lay her to rest on this island, we'd all agree it's really comforting to know she's in the heart, she's in the bosom of her family.
And we'd like to thank the steam packet for the beautiful gesture they made and the honour that they gave to her in saluting her as we arrived at the sea terminal. So thank you, the steam packet.
I'm a police officer in the UK. I was given permission by the Chief Constable to wear my ceremonial dress for my mum's funeral, which was a great honour. Hearing the piper and then carrying mum in on my shoulder, it's the single most honourable thing you can do for your mum. When we turned the corner into Braddon Church, down the aisle, I just saw all the family were there, and it just took my breath away.
Embracing Mother as she entered the church, which was full of love. We sincerely hope that we've allowed her to have an encore on the Isle of Man as the curtain closes on her life. And we say to Mum, au revoir, and we'll see you later.
A lovely tribute there by Jackie, David and Mark to their mother, Florence. It's 21 minutes past 5 now. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. It's Friday, the 10th of January. Are you taking part in Veganuary this year? It's a challenge that encourages people to eat healthier in the first month of the new year. Manx resident Michelle Garrett-Chambers is a first-time author, releasing her vegan book, Kiss Plant-Based Eating.
Veganuary is a global movement, and it's to encourage people to try eating vegan for a month to see how they get on with it. And it's just trying to encourage people to eat more healthfully and cut down on their meat, eggs and dairy intake. To see how they fare with it, and then if they really enjoy it and like it, they carry it on through the year. It's been going now thick and fast since about 2017. That's when I first noticed it really going mainstream.
And for someone that would be looking ahead to Veganuary, having something like Kiss plant-based eating that would benefit them throughout the month, maybe with the different types of recipes.
That is the whole point of the book. It's to just get you started. So you have a handful of recipes and you can eat well, really nice, delicious food. And hopefully that will then keep you on track, because it'll just open your eyes and think, oh, actually, this is easy. It's not as difficult as I thought. I know what to go out and buy, and I've got a few recipes there to get me going. And it's not just main meals, there's also desserts in there, sweet treats and things as well, so you don't miss out on that.
And then the idea of the book, how did that come about?
Because I was running cook and eat workshops back in 2020 when we just had the lockdowns. I'd actually, going back before that, I was running a spa and I was creating all of the dishes for my spa, which was all plant-based food. But the food was getting 5-star ratings every time, and I ended up enjoying creating the food dishes more than I was doing the therapies. So I phased myself out of therapy and fully into the food. And I started to host cook and eat workshops teaching people how to make plant-based food. During those workshops, the common theme was, oh, I'd love to eat like this more, but I don't know how to. So I was just trying to work out, okay, well, how can I reach people? How can I let them know how easy it is to cook and eat this way? And then from that came the book.
Michelle Garrett-Chambers speaking to Chanel there. We must keep believing and results will come. That's the view of FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones as he and his team look to improve their recent slump in form in the coming weeks. Jones maintains his squad has the quality to get back into NWCFL Premier Division playoff contention, but admits there are several areas where standards need to be lifted.
Some of it is finishing chances. That always helps, and we're back to conceding too many goals. So it's both ends of the pitch, and there has been a little bit of a drop off in terms of our intensity and our energy, not just during the games, but in training as well. This part of the season's really difficult for us because of so many away fixtures early on in the season and the time of year. It does make it very difficult for us, for every team, but us even more so. But coming into training this week, I've certainly noticed a very different energy within the group, and I feel like that spark is back for whatever reason. We've actually done better in November, December this season than we did last year, and we've really got to make sure that we double down our efforts to play the last 16 games as well as we possibly can to win as many games as possible.
In the last few games, the lineups have looked a little different to maybe earlier in the season. Has there been any particular reason?
Yeah, there's availability stuff that people won't be aware of. There's other things that happen. We've got a really strong squad, and it's my job to get the best out of the squad. And I think some of the comments around team selection last week were disrespectful to the players that started the game, and it was only really off the basis of the result, not the performance.
There's only 4 away games left, which means there's a huge chunk of home games coming up this calendar year. Home form doesn't seem to have necessarily translated the way you've wanted it to into points and results. What do you think maybe makes playing at home sometimes for these players more difficult than maybe being on the road?
I think it's just a case of getting into the rhythm and the routine of it. It's just different, and it takes a little bit of time for everyone to get used to. I think there is that level of expectation, especially this season, that can weigh heavy at times, but we're doing okay. I don't see it being a problem.
FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones, a reminder that FC Isle of Man's league match at Bury tomorrow has been postponed due to a frozen pitch. But for sport that hasn't been frozen off, Rob Pritchard.
Indeed. Well, we're going to stay with football, but looking at the Isle of Man scene, and the 2 current title contenders in Division 2 meeting a potentially pivotal encounter this weekend as part of the latest league fixtures here on Ireland. Saturday will see current Division 2 tabletoppers Braddon take on second place Douglas High School Old Boys among tomorrow's 2 p.m. kickoffs. Braddon sit 3 points above Old Boys heading into this weekend. However, the visitors remain undefeated in the league and also have 2 games in hand. All of Saturday's fixtures are due to get underway at 2 p.m, with the exception of St Mary's versus St John's United in the Canada Life Men's Premier League, which will start at the earlier time of 1:45 p.m. Elsewhere in rugby, Douglas are due to be back on home soil at Portachee this weekend with what looks to be a daunting task in front of them. They take on current Regional 2 North West leaders Sandbach, who beat the Islanders 50 points to 21 in the previous meeting between the sides this campaign. Elsewhere, after their opening game of the new year at Ashton-under-Lyne was postponed last weekend, Vagabonds are due to take to the field at Ballafletcher in Counties 3 ADM Lancashire Cheshire tomorrow afternoon. Still looking for their first league win of the season, Vagabonds face Orrell, the only team below them in the standings at this stage. And in hockey, tomorrow we're expecting to see the 2025 Isle of Man men's and ladies season get underway. Matches are penned in to take place across all 6 senior divisions from tomorrow morning and through Saturday afternoon. It is worth noting, though, as of earlier this afternoon, pitches across the island were still frozen due to the recent cold weather. A final decision on the matches will be made tomorrow morning.
Gromyed, Rob Pritchard. That's it for Update Tonight. Thank you for joining me. In just a few moments, Rob is back with an hour of Friday Sport Preview. And we'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend.